don't think I thought about my mental health before having kids. I think when you're young and busy, perhaps those things don't cross your mind so much. And it really only became apparent sort of leading up to, I think, the birth of our first child. I think those days in the hospital were very much a blur. I remember the maternal and child health nurse coming to visit, as they all do after you've come home, and I didn't know who it was going to be. They were literally a stranger to me. But, they rang the doorbell and I happened to answer and I saw them and they hadn't even said a word and I just burst into tears. I felt there was definitely a conflict between, I'm pretty sure things are not okay, but I don't have time to deal with that right now. In the few weeks after birth, we were staying with my mum, but also my husband's mum came and they tried to help, I guess, with the practical things like cooking and cleaning and holding the baby and I guess just looking after the house, and I guess sort of left me to process being a new mum sort of by myself. I think there's lots of layers of difficulty, and probably the first is that feeling of being a failure. You're a new mother, you've seen new mothers before kind of nail it and why can't I do that? Like what's wrong with me? Why is this so hard? And I think that was when I realized that if I don't seek help now, it is going to get a lot worse. It was just more of a realization that this is not sustainable. I actually did call the PANDA helpline, and that was very helpful because A, they kept in contact with me to kind of see how things were progressing, but B, they also came up with a bit of a plan with me, and so I could come with that plan in a way to the GP. And then after that first call, I think at the end of the call, we agreed that it would be okay at this time next week for the PANDA counsellor to call back. And they did, and it was, I guess, a pretty reliable, probably every 1 to 2 weeks there was some follow-up. We had another child and it was a different experience altogether. And I think having had the first child and the experience of postnatal depression then just made it a lot easier to be aware of potential triggers, potential difficulties, making sure that there were support mechanisms in place to counter anything that might occur. And in fact, it didn't happen. I think one of the key things that I'd like to remind people is that we're all human, and even if you might know already that you have, say, you've had, previous poor mental health in the past, maybe that gives you a greater risk of poor mental health later, or, if you've had adverse life events, perhaps, maybe that puts you at greater risk. But that's not a 100% predictor. These things can happen to anybody at any time. And just because you had it with your first child, it doesn't have to happen with subsequent children. I think when you're in the thick of it, it can be very hard to know and to believe that you are going to be okay on the other side. But there is another side.